is nothing better to do when you are on a date, especially your first date. What do you typically do? You go to the movies, and now the theaters are back open, but there's really not a lot of good things out there for people to see right now, right, Nate?
Yeah, there's a bunch of smaller scale stuff that's coming out. This week alone, there's actually two new theatrical releases only in theaters. And one of them is the Liam Neeson. It's a Liam Neeson action thriller. It's called Honest Thief, which is not very good. And then there's another one. It's based on a true story, kind of faith-based drama. It's called Two Hearts, which also opens this weekend. It is also not very good. I think the best bet that if you're gonna make the trek to see some movies this weekend, I can recommend Tenet. I was a big fan of Tenet, but also I know that a bunch of local area theaters are showing Hocus Pocus back on the big screen again. You know, the Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker Disney comedy that's somehow gained cult classic status, but that would be
I
my
love that
recommendation
movie,
this
but
weekend.
I'm a
Yeah,
chick.
yeah. No, I mean, I think it appeals to a lot of people, and seeing it kind of rise into the zeitgeist of essential Halloween watching is just it's been kind of fun. But I actually like it too, so it's okay.
I think the theaters need to bring back Rocky Horror Picture Show to get people into the theaters right now.
Yeah, some area theaters. I know the Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor and the State Theater every year they do kind of like a midnight showing of it, and it's usually a big deal. They do garner a lot of people that come out for it, and a bunch of we have here the Croswell Opera House in downtown Adrian, which is like Michigan's oldest theater. They show it sometimes. They showed it last year. It is kind of expensive because I know that the rights holders, the studios, this time of year they can charge a little bit more to show it because of the high demand. So maybe that's why it doesn't this year. Theaters are hurting a little bit. Maybe they don't have the extra money to show it. I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to get people back into the theater. And not only that, you make it a production, right?
Right?
So for
Yeah.
people who have never been, such as Tyler, we were just talking, it is an experience that everyone has to participate in, especially if you get the old timers who know all the scenes, because it's not just movie watching. Like, I don't know if they're going to let you bring in hot dogs to throw and all the good stuff from the old days, but it is a good way to at least get new people in the seats to try to sell those tickets because there are no big movies out there that want me to go to the movie theater.
That is absolutely right. Theaters' last hope up until a couple weeks ago. Right now on the calendar, I mean, if you go back a month, you had Wonder Woman 1984 was on the schedule, Black Widow was still on the schedule, James Bond's No Time to Die was on the schedule, and right now, a couple weeks ago, the No Time to Die, the James Bond film was actually they pushed it. It was coming out on Thanksgiving, and they pushed it to next year in April. Basically, we've just lost a whole year of movies. Like Black Widow moved back to its original May release date a year later. Top Gun Maverick's coming out next June. Fast and Furious 9, which at the time when Fast and Furious 9 moved, it was originally coming out this year Memorial Day weekend. They pushed it a full year already. Last year they are back in May, they moved it to this April or the following April, and everyone thought that was crazy. Everyone thought, well, that's a little eccentric. Why are we moving it so far into the future? And now they look like geniuses because everything's it's been release date musical chairs essentially. So right, the next big thing, if you even want to say it's a big release, Fox or no, Universal is releasing The Croods: A New Age, which is a DreamWorks animation sequel. It's coming on Thanksgiving, but you have to remember AMC Theaters struck a deal with Universal that for 17 days it plays exclusively in theaters, and then after that 17 days it can go to premium video on demand, so it'll be at home by the time Christmas rolls around, and that is the only reason that you will see that movie opening up in so many theaters.
Nate Adams with us, film critic at theonlycritic.com, also a film critic on RottenTomatoes.com as well. So with that being the case, is there any chance for these movie theaters? I mean, people that like to see movies in the theater are still going to go and see them in the theater. At least some of those people will do that still as theaters have reopened. But do they have any chance of being even somewhat competitive with streaming services over the next 6 to 8 months to a year while they're waiting for some of these other blockbusters down the pike to finally get back into theaters? Or are theaters going to have a real struggle as they reopen for several months trying to get people to come into those theaters.
Yeah, I think theaters are really, really gonna hurt, and and I know there's been a lot of things out there writing letters to Congress, on this next, hopefully the stimulus package that's being, made in Congress right now, and that, theaters like, airlines and stuff, they could use some of those funds to help kind of keep the lights on. And you're already seeing it. My local theater here nearby that just opened up, they're open, they're open every day, and they had showings all day. They've already reduced their hours. They're going to be closed on Mondays and Wednesdays, and they're only going to be open on Tuesdays, Thursdays in the week, and then obviously the weekend. But when I look at like the content of films that's coming up on streaming, like this weekend, you got Trial of the Chicago 7, which is a buzzy Oscar Aaron Sorkin drama, which I think is one of the best films of the year. It's going to be on Netflix. People can watch that at home. They don't have to go out and see the theater. And you're getting an Oscar calibrated cast with Aaron Sorkin directed. And Aaron Sorkin's a huge, huge director. And then in the future, Netflix also has films coming up from David Fincher, who made The Social Network and Seven and Fight Club. He hasn't made a movie since 2014's Gone Girl. That's also going to be at home on Netflix. So the incentive to stay home is never been more prevalent. And obviously that should be what it is because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But you also hear that Borat 2, which filmed secretly during the whole coronavirus thing, that's coming on Amazon Prime Video next Friday. And then Disney just announced this week that their big Pixar release, Soul, is going to be released on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. And the Eddie Murphy sequel, Coming to America, the sequel to Coming to America, was also just purchased by Prime Video and is going to be a Christmas release. So the content that's coming out at home is substantially better than Honest Thief, the Liam Neeson thriller, or the Robert De Niro family comedy, The War with Grandpa. Like it's never been more obvious to stay at home. And I really do feel for the theaters. I did go in last Friday just to kind of pick up some snacks because I missed that experience. I wanted to get my popcorn and my drink and my candy, and I wanted to support them the best way I could. But there's just really, and as a film critic, we get access to these things, and I get to watch them at home. So it's like I don't even need to go into the theater. But I also talk to other people, and there's like, yeah, nothing is there incentivizing me when I could just stay home and watch something much better.
Yeah, and you bring up such a great point right there, is that the movie theaters, I think, at this point in time need to understand people are going to go there to try to support them because we don't want them to go away. But you're right. I don't want to see some stupid comedy and pay, $12.95 to go see it when I can see that at home and it's the same experience. We get like movie theater popcorn is great, but it's not that great. That's not the only thing that's going to get me into the theater. And if you don't have the big blockbuster hits, they need to come up with some marketing campaign or something to get people to want to come to the movie theaters. And we're hoping it maybe because of the winter months, people are going to want to go because that's typically in the state of Michigan. It's really our form of entertainment is to go to the movie theater with our girlfriends or our friends and our spouses.
Yeah, it's the number one leisure activity in the country. That's what everyone does it. Everyone goes to the movies.
But how do they change it during this pandemic to make it worth our time when the movie we're going to see is not the enticement to get us there?
Well, I think you're seeing it already. They're playing back catalog titles. Like I mentioned, I know Hocus Pocus, like Disney's doing a wide re-release, or Coco. They're doing a lot of, like I know the original Halloween is making a comeback here and re-release, and they were The Empire Strikes Back, the Star Wars film 40th anniversary was released. But you're right. It's they have to do a little bit more, and I do want to commend the theaters. The Imagine Theaters here in Michigan, MJR Theaters. They've adapted the Cinema Safe policy, which is what the National Association of Theater Owners, it's their kind of blanket blueprint for how to handle sanitary. And in the time, and I've been to a movie theater a couple times actually since they've reopened, and I was very, very impressed at their sanitation and cleanliness procedure. And so, and obviously some people might be so worried about their health, and if you don't want to go into a movie theater, obviously don't do that. But I'm just saying from my experience, I was very impressed with how they were handling everything. But, we saw it. So Warner Brothers took a gamble. They released Tenet, which was a $200 million budgeted tentpole because they wanted to help theaters out, and it didn't do very well. And a lot of that has to do because at the time, California theaters aren't open, and the biggest movie-going market in the country, which is New York City, is still closed with no – we don't know when that's going to open, and a lot of studios and a lot of filmmakers will not release a big film if New York is off the table because that is where a lot of the revenue comes in, and there's there's no telling when that revenue or that stream is going to open back up. And a lot of theater owners have said that if New York City theaters were open, you might be seeing a lot of big budget tentpoles. But I also want to say, it is good though that films like No Time to Die, Fast and Furious 9, Wonder Woman, Dune, all these big budget films, they are waiting for theaters. Those films will not go to streaming. So there is that crutch that is going to keep theaters on alive, because in the future those movies will be back and they will bring back audiences. And it's nice to see that the studios are kind of showing solidarity with theaters in that way. You know, the films that I mentioned earlier, they're kind of smaller budgeted, you know, they're comedies, family films. It's a different marketplace. And so that's why you're going to see some of those films show up on streaming when others do not. So that's good.
And there are some movies that you want to see in the movie theater.
Yeah, any Marvel film, you don't want to watch that at home.
Oh, no way. It totally takes away from the experience. I'm looking forward to Wonder Woman. And but this is where I also say this is a time for some of these movie theaters to get creative. Something like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it's old school, but it's also an experience that you cannot have at home. So I'm surprised during this month of October you're reopening for the first time that we're not seeing this really pushed, and some of the mainstream bigger theaters offering this as an option for people to see. Because I will say, I went to it probably when I was in my 20s, and you just remember it. It was this crazy time. You can't replicate that at home. So to come up with something like that where it's an experience, I think some of these movie theaters need to start thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and I guess, maybe there's I actually went to a Rocky Horror screening for the first time, a couple years ago, and I got the whole experience. People were throwing things at the screen, and there was like lines of dialogue being thrown out in between other lines of dialogue, and it was definitely a new experience for me. And maybe the theaters are scared because of they want to keep people safe and they want to keep them spread out in distance. And if people are yelling and screaming and going madness, maybe that's the reason that's holding them back. And maybe you'll see other theaters that will show Rocky Horror this time of year. I wouldn't rule it out completely. As far as like a marketing ploy, I know a lot. My local theater, they're doing free popcorns on Tuesdays with their rewards program. They're doing bargain shows all day long. Like older movies, it's only $5. It's like they are trying. But you're right, maybe there's just one little, puzzle piece that needs to be connected just to make that click, to make audiences flock back. But it's also just tough because they're also open at 20 to 30% capacity, and there are still a lot of people out there that are wary of their health, and they're afraid that sitting inside a dark enclosed space for 2 hours might be damaging to their health. And so they're in a tough spot, and I wouldn't want to be in their position to figure out how to get people back in the doors. I'm a moviegoer. I'm an avid moviegoer, and you don't have to convince me, but you do got to convince, other people.
Right. It's the general public. And with that, it's a long road ahead for some of these movie theaters. I know AMC just announced that they're probably going to be closing a lot of their theaters, but let's hope that several of them, we had Paul Glantz on earlier this week, Imagine seems to be holding the line, and we hope they continue to do so because it really is a favorite pastime for so many people, but I think even more so for people in the northern states as we go into the winter months, because that is really our activity that we rely on. And knowing that, what are you watching right now? So we can talk about streaming for a little bit. What are the big shows, if we are not comfortable with going back to the movie theaters, we should be tuning into?
Well, I mentioned earlier the Trial of the Chicago 7 drops on Netflix tomorrow. It's a crazy cast. You got Eddie Redmayne, who won an Oscar, Frank Langella, Oscar-nominated, Mark Rylance, who won an Oscar, Sacha Baron Cohen is also in like this dramatic, funny role, Jeremy Strong, and it's about the 1968 protests that happened after the Democratic National Convention, and it's written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, who is a powerhouse when it comes to writing dialogue, and that is the most connected I felt to a movie all year, just because it's so timely, it's fitting, the social and political unrest that's happening in our country. And so maybe that might hit close to home for some people, or some people that might have lived it. But for me, it really touched me. It really moved me. and that comes out on Netflix this weekend. You're going to get to see it at home on Netflix. David Byrne. So Broadway's closed until 2021, or at least now it's until May 2021, they announced last week. So Spike Lee filmed David Byrne's American Utopia, to the lead singer of Radiohead, and they filmed a show called American Utopia. And so that's coming on HBO Max on Saturday night. And it was like a Radiohead concert in my living room. It felt like I was watching a Broadway show live. So those little things we should be looking out for to kind of get some semblance of the movie going and, Broadway experience. So all those things are happening at home. There's a lot of premium video on demand content that's coming out. Dylan O'Brien has a new Paramount Pictures release. It's called Love and Monsters. That'll be available, at digital retailers this weekend. I watched that. It's really, really good. It's a smaller budgeted sci-fi fantasy. I really actually liked Adam Sandler's Huby Halloween, which premiered on Netflix last week. And I think it's because the bar is so low for Adam Sandler comedies that when one is decent, it's like surprises you. And then also a lot of movies this year, including that one, 2020 has just been such a rough time that I think when you can see anything that can make you forget about the world and just make you laugh for at least 5 or 10 minutes, it gets a pass because it's 2020 and nothing else matters. And so a lot of movies I think would have not gotten as much attention or gotten as much praise if they hadn't come out this year. I know that's kind of weird to say, but I just say, it's 2020. And if it's, Adam Sandler comedy makes me laugh, I believe it. So look out for those things. Like Clouds, there's about Zach, I can't think of his last name, but he wrote the song Clouds. It was a very popular song back in 2013. That's coming on Disney Plus this weekend. So lots of things to watch out for. I mentioned Borat 2 coming out next week on Amazon Prime Video. Lovecraft Country streaming on HBO Max. That's good. I'm watching that right now. There's not a lack of content. I've actually seen more movies this year than I have in any other year combined. So it's not a lack of content.
Nate Adams with us, film critic at theonlycritic.com, as well as RottenTomatoes.com, with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Nate, just another couple minutes with you before we have to say goodbye. Anything else that moviegoers and movie fanatics should be watching out for right now, or any other information that you would like to tell our audience at this time?
Just check in on your theater peeps, people that your artist friends, because there's a lot of them that are hurting right now. Because I know a lot of performer friends. They're bummed they're not going to get to act or perform until 2021. And I know our movie theater exhibition industry is kind of they're struggling, and everybody's struggling. And so we just kind of have to look out for them and give them let them know that we're here for them, and just it's tough for everybody, like I said, but I just look out for them. And if you can, support your local theater in any way that you can, even if you don't want to go see a movie like I did. I just went and purchased some snacks from them, and I will more than likely be purchasing some more snacks from them this week. And I'm trying to, I guess, do my part to kind of help them be sustainable and, just be safe. Whatever you do, if you do decide that the movie-going experience is for you right now and that's what you want to do, just, do your part and wear a mask and wash your hands, all that good stuff.
And it really is important. Like, you don't realize how much you take some of these venues for granted until we don't have them any longer. And even more so as we go into the next 6 months, 8 months, and more movie theaters do start to close if they can't survive. Not having it so close in your backyard is something really big. I will say I'm kind of a geek, and I love documentaries. I just watched the Dolly Parton one on Netflix. Down to Earth.
It's been a great year for
Zac
docs.
Efron, fascinating if you're into the environment. Love it, absolutely love it. And I'm not even a Zac Efron fan. And the other one, Social Dilemma. If no one has seen that on Netflix, especially parents with kids, and how addictive they made social media for all of us, I recommend all those documentaries. Which ones are on your top list before we let you go?
So I did love Social Dilemma. I like that one a lot. My favorite documentary this year, though, is called Boy State, and it's streaming right now on Apple TV Plus, and it's about this convention in Texas where kids from all across the country come and convene, and they get separated into two political parties. And then it's like a week-long intensive, and they have to figure out, they elect a president. They climb through the ranks, and they decide this is going to be our candidate for this party, and they all have different factions. There's like there's like lower level courts, and then there's like city court. It's just crazy. They build up a whole judicial branch of government, Each team does, and then they build up their one candidate that they're going to have run for president, and then they campaign and they do everything, and it really just shows. It shows the divide in the country because this was filmed, I think, last year. But it's also just very, very fascinating to see the future of our country and where their morals and where their ethics lie. And it's very, very, very insightful. It's very, very eye opening. It's also like you can't look away. It's like 2 hours of just like, I cannot believe what I'm watching. Like you're watching some of the things that these kids say will blow your mind. Some of them are really, really smart because they know the game of politics and they know what to do to get ahead. And it's also sad because they're also like 16, 17 years old and they're seeing this in real life and this is what they're mimicking. So that was really eye opening. Ron Howard directed a documentary called Welcome to Paradise, which was about the wildfires that ravaged through California, which was so emotional and very raw. And then American Murder, The Family Next Door, was also just on Netflix, which was about the man who obviously, he murdered his family and stuff, and that was very tough to watch. But
that was crazy. That was
yeah.
So crazy, wasn't it?
And how they pieced it together with there was no interviews with people. It was just pieced together with archival footage and text messages and social media posts. And it was just, it was very, very, very well done.
What is the Welcome to Paradise on? Which outlet?
So National Geographic produced it. I'm not sure if it's available yet. I know they had a limited run in theaters. If I had to guess, I bet if you looked on iTunes or like digital retailers, I feel like it's out there somewhere. As far as I know they did a limited run. Oh, and also, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, another documentary. It's called The Way I See It, is premiering commercial free on MSNBC. I want to either say it's today or tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And it's about the White House chief photographer, Pete Souza, who followed President Barack Obama for 8 years and was given unmitigated access to the behind the scenes and taking pictures. Just no photographer ever had this kind of access. And it's his documentary about what he saw and what he did. And it's really, really good. That also comes out. Like I said, it'll be on an MSNBC this week, commercial free. Anybody that wants to tune in that, I highly recommend that as well.
Well, Nate, thank you so much. We're running a little bit over, or I could talk to you forever. I will say I haven't bought into Apple TV right now because of my love-hate relationship with Apple. It's like a bad relationship. Nate Adams, film critic, we always appreciate your time as well as your insight. Someone that has one of the best jobs out there. Thank you again, and let's just hope that our movie theaters do survive. Everyone get out, try to support them in one way or another. Buy a gift certificate, and like you said, buy popcorn, buy some snacks. Just appreciate them so that they don't go away.